Hi, I'm Beverly Harzog, host of Your Personal Economy. You can't control inflation or even the price of groceries, but you can control your own personal economy. And I'm going to show you just how to do that because the way you spend your money is the way you spend your life. And I want you to have the best life possible. Welcome to episode number 17 Get What You Want from Your Credit Card Company. As consumers, you have more power than you know, and I'm going to show you how to wield that power. We're going to talk about negotiating your interest rate with credit cards. That's called the APR, how to get maybe a lower interest rate, and maybe waive an annual fee for a year or two. You'll be surprised what you might be able to get if you simply ask in the right way. And we're also going to talk about how to ask to have a late fee removed if you've made a mistake. And what if you can't pay your bills? I'm going to show you how to negotiate with your credit card company so that you don't miss payments and maybe can get some help along the way. So stay tuned and you're going to learn all this and more. One of the most common questions I get about how to negotiate with your credit card company is about APRs or the interest rate. And the average APR for a credit card, according to LendingTree, as of June 4th, is 24.8%. That is very high. Part of this is due to the Fed raising the interest rate over the past couple of years. But, it is what it is today. But that doesn't mean you can't do something about it. I want you to take a look at your credit score. The reason I am saying this is because I do not want you to attract attention to yourself if you can't withstand the credit scrutiny. Okay. And what I mean by this, because this has backfired on people that I know who have tried this. You might ask for a lower interest rate or, a higher credit limit, but maybe you haven't been a really good card holder. Maybe your score is a little bit on the downside right now, and maybe you've been a little sloppy with your payments. Okay, if that is your situation, hold off. I want you to spend 4 to 6 months of, pushing good behavior before you attempt to get any favors from your credit card issuer. So, as long as you've got a great score, you're ready to go here. Like I said, as long as you can withstand the scrutiny, you are golden to go. So I want you to make a list of a couple of points you want to make. If you've been with this credit card company for a long time, say that, okay? And if it's impressive, give the exact amount of time. If you've been with them for a year, you might just say, well, I've been with you for a little while now. I'm a great card holder. Or I've been with you for 20 years and I've been a great card holder, and perhaps you could give me a lower interest rate. You can also scout out the competition. Okay, this is the great thing about having an excellent credit score. When you're at the top of your credit game, okay, you can command better terms and fees. You truly can. Most people don't know that. One of my favorite things to say is consumers have more power than they know. And you absolutely do, especially if you have a good credit score. All right, so you can ask for an interest rate reduction, but do some research so you can find out what competition is paying, in terms of what they're offering for their best credit card customers. If you've got a 21% APR with your current issuer, have you seen when you've compared rates, have you seen with another credit card competitor a similar card where they're offering 19.8? Okay, if so, use that as leverage. So what we're talking about, with negotiating is truly negotiating, okay? And you have to have a couple of points you want to make to get this deal done. And I also recommend when you ask for lower interest rate, if the first person says no, I want you to ask to speak to that person's manager. And we're just going to keep going up the ladder until somebody high up says, we can't do that right now, but we might consider it in a few months. So that's where you want to end up if you don't get that interest rate decrease. Will you consider this in 3 months? They might say 6 and you say, "No, maybe 3." So, be confident, polite. It's always important. I believe in treating people in customer service with respect because that's not an easy job. And I find that, you get more in life with a little charm and just being nice than you do trying to bully your way through and get exactly what you want at the expense of others. So let's be nice and show good manners and then see what happens. Something very related to this is annual fees. Okay. And people think, oh, well, if they're not waiving it for me in the first year, I'm a new customer, maybe it's not possible. Well, it absolutely is. So, what I want you to do is call your issuer, or if you're applying for a new card, call customer service. Okay, and tell them you're considering the card. Would they waive the annual fee for the first year? You're actually considering another card that does that. And be sure you do some research, because if you just make this up and no other card is doing that, they're probably going to know. And if they won't waive that fee, maybe that other card is a better target for you. So keep that in mind as well. So you want to do a similar thing where, you come across with manners and respect and say, I would really love this card. And if you could waive that annual fee, I would just love that. I've got a perfect payment history. I've got a great score. I'm an overall fabulous card holder. So you have to present yourself with confidence, but not arrogance. Okay, there's a big difference there. All right. Next, we're going to talk about fees. And then coming up after that, credit card debt. Exactly what can you do about that debt? Is there such a thing as credit card debt forgiveness? That's a topic I've written about a lot, and I'll get into that a little more later. Let's talk about late fees. If you pay your credit card bill a little bit late, you could be hit with a fee of, well, it used to average around $32. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, known as the CFPB, recently stepped in to cap that at $8. But don't let that make you feel like it's okay to make a late payment. It is not, and I will tell you why. When you make a late payment and it's over 30 days late, okay, your credit card issuer legally can report that to the credit bureau. Some of them do, some of them don't. They wait until it's 60 days late, which makes things even a whole lot worse for you when that ends up on your credit report. But here's the deal. Now, if you pay your bill on time, you don't have to worry about this. But once it's late, as soon as you discover that you have missed a payment, don't wait until the next month and just say, I'll pay double. No, it doesn't work that way. I want you to call your credit card issuer. Again, we're going to do a little bit of a script before we pick up the phone. What's your credit score? What's your payment history? Pick a couple of things that you can really play up in your favor. Okay, it has to be true, but there's always something. All right. And then I want you to think about why this happened. What event occurred that made this fall through the cracks for you, especially if it's unusual? I will tell you something that happened to me 6 years ago. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had surgery for that, went home. About 7, 8 days later, I started having horrible pain and a fever and had to go to the emergency room. And they diagnosed me with a MRSA infection at that point. It was one of the worst weeks of my life. I had to spend that whole next week in the hospital in isolation and have surgery again to help treat the MRSA infection. It was terrible. So, as you can imagine, I really wasn't thinking about my bills at that moment. Maybe medical bills and what insurance would cover, but I wasn't really thinking about my day-to-day, month-to-month expenses. And neither was my husband. We were pretty tied up in life right then, just surviving. Now, about a week or two later, I realized what had happened. And so I called my issuer and I explained, just the way I just explained to you, that I'd been in the hospital, breast cancer, MRSA infection, and it just slipped through the cracks. And, I've got a score in the 820s, and, I've been a great card holder. I've never had a late payment before. Well, not since I was young. Not since I learned how to manage my finances properly. So this was really unusual for me. And they said, okay, no worries. We hope you get better quickly, and we won't report it to the bureaus, and we're going to remove the late fee. And back then, it was still about $32, I think. So they removed that, and it didn't show up on my credit report. So this is just an example of being a little proactive. And let's say you just made a mistake. Okay, you were on vacation or something, or you just got busy. The kids had a lot going on. Maybe a parent became ill. Anything can happen. So even if it just slipped your mind, I still want you to try this, okay? Especially if it's unusual for you, and just let them know. If it did slip through the cracks, say something like, "Oh, well, I've set up automatic payments now, so this will never happen again." If you can explain it in a reasonable way, and remember, good manners all the way through, respect, you have a good chance of them waiving the late fee and not putting it on your credit report. Now, let's say it goes 60 days. Well, that's hard to talk your way out of that one. Okay. You can still call, especially if it was in a medical emergency, that went on for a long time. I was able to get treated pretty quickly when I had that infection. And so I was able to, pay my bills again a week later. But if you're in a situation where you had some sort of horrific accident, or, family member suddenly became very ill, explain this to your issuer. It doesn't hurt to just call and ask, because, if you never ask, the answer is always no. So always ask, try. You might be surprised by the results. Next, let's talk about credit card debt. Can you negotiate your way out of credit card debt? Well, yes and no. All right, we'll talk about that next. I remember how it feels to be in terrible credit card debt. I mean, it was many years ago. I was very young, right out of college when it happened to me. But after all these decades, I still know what it was like. Okay. I think I'll never forget that. And I think that's probably a good thing. When you remember a bad time very clearly, it keeps you from making the similar mistakes. But if you're in that situation, I do feel for you. It's tough. It's a tough place to be. Now, one thing you can do, and please, again, I've talked about calling your credit card issuer as soon as you know there are issues or fees, that you need to address. Okay, if you can't make your credit card payment because your debt has just gotten a little out of control, call your credit card issuer and say, "Look, I'm having trouble, paying my bills." Ask to speak to the hardship department, and they will work with you usually for about a year. So it's a short-term solution, and perhaps give you a lower interest rate during that time, or maybe even lower the minimum payment you have to do monthly. And this is designed to help you get back on your feet financially so that you can recover and, pay off your debt. But what if you can't pay off your debt? What if you feel like you're drowning? It's so big. I want you to contact the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. That's nfcc.org, and they will help you. And don't hesitate to reach out for help. This could happen to anybody, and, it doesn't matter, how educated you are, where you live, what profession you're in. This could happen to anybody. I've seen it happen to people with medical debt, job losses, or even a divorce, which can devastate you or both of you. You and your partner can, have a terrible financial situation after a divorce occurs. All kinds of situations lead people to this. So please don't beat yourself up. Just, start thinking about solution at this point. So reaching out to a credit a counselor doesn't mean you have to go into a debt management plan. It just means you're going to know what your options are because you need to speak with a professional at that point. Now, I get asked often about credit card debt forgiveness. And, when I worked at U.S. News and World Report as a columnist, I wrote about this quite a bit. And, one thing that I know people think that, they fantasize that you're going to be able to have all your debt forgiven and life will just be normal again. You can start fresh. And I would love that for many people. But unfortunately, that is not how it works. There is a type of bankruptcy that you can go through, which can wipe out your debt. That's a drastic solution. So you might want to just consider first, if working with your credit card issuer isn't going to help, going to a credit counselor. And at some point, you might be able to pay less than you agreed to pay, in terms of what the debt is. But there are consequences for that too, in terms of your credit score. And there were even tests that a legal expert can help you with to determine if you owe taxes on it. So it's not a free ride. Keep that in mind, nfcc.org, and don't wait. Call as soon as you can. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 17. Get what you want from your credit card company. We talked about how to negotiate whether you want to get rid of an annual fee for a year or get a lower interest rate. And when you put your best credit face forward, you have a much better chance to get what you want. Coming up next, we're going to talk about travel rewards credit cards. Are you ready to go on vacation? How about go for free? I'm going to be speaking with Lee Huffman, who is a travel rewards expert who travels all over the world with his family for free. And you're going to learn some great tips from him on how you can do it too. So be sure you join us for episode number 18. And if you're enjoying my podcast, please subscribe. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.